Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to this channel. Give this video a like.
Check out the podcast below in the description as well, people.
All right, John. Peter King had a couple ideas in his Football Morning in America. Had a bunch of trade options for Deshaun Watson, different teams, Panthers, etc., etc., and the 49ers. And he had a Niners Deshaun Watson trade and a Niners Deshaun Watson trade that actually he ended up on the Vikings, and they ended up with Kirk Cousins. That trade was Jimmy Garoppolo and their 12th pick to the Texans as part of a 3-team deal that gets them Kirk Cousins, and Deshaun ends up on the Vikings. The other trade for Deshaun was Fred Warner, Mike McGlinchey, 2 1s, a 2, and a 3. I think that's all correct there. It was 7 things. So 2 1s, a 2,
a Warner, a McGlinchey.
Warner, I think I came up one thing short, but it was a big
lot,
trade.
yeah. Okay, you want to start with the Cousins one?
Yeah, let's start with the Cousins one. Is Cousins worth the 12th pick?
Under no circumstances can you do that. Just the 12th pick alone. 1. 2, I'd be cool with flip-flopping Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo if that was possible, right? Give Jimmy to New England, get Cousins for anything not the 12th pick. I could live with because I think
What
Cousins
about next year's one?
No. To me, he's just
So you would not trade a 1 for Kirk Cousins?
I would not.
Yeah.
But I could handle a 2nd and a McGlinchey or something. Something like that. I could live with that. What I cannot do, and I think what Kyle cannot do to the equity he's built up for a guy that's had 1 great season and 3 seasons, 2 were disasters, and 1, which the record wasn't great, but was actually really impressive when you watched it. He has a lot of equity. I think everyone you go to, pretty universally, that's a Niner fan, feels very, very good about their coach, and they should. If he were to facilitate, because he's in charge, and be part of a 3-way trade that gets rid of your 12th pick and lands Deshaun Watson somewhere else, I don't think he could live that down when Kirk Cousins is involved to the Niners. I just
well, I mean, he could live it down if it works, right? If you like win a Super Bowl or you go to the championship or something like that.
Well, I do think the animosity though on the trade day would be just I think it would be nuts to be part of, and I don't think the Niners would do this. I don't think they would help facilitate somewhere else when they're giving up their most powerful asset to not get Deshaun Watson, right?
And put and upgrade a rival. I mean, like Minnesota plays in their conference. They have played Minnesota in the playoffs before. They have beaten Minnesota on the road to the Super Bowl.
They were 7-9 this year. I would say you put Deshaun Watson there. They have a couple. Their coach is a defensive coach. Their defense isn't going to be as bad. How would they not be a playoff team, right? Wouldn't you say Minnesota would be like, damn, they're going to compete for a wild card?
Yep.
They already kind of did, right? They were up really in it, and they started 1-5. You're right. That's a double whammy. You're facilitating Deshaun Watson, not to you, while giving up the 12th pick to a team that you're competing against to make the playoffs. Because I think it's fair to assume, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo or a rookie, like the Niners are not, they're not going to win the division. If they win the division, I'll be, shocked. I think they can compete to make the playoffs. But I think it's the Rams division right now to win. Or we'll see what Seattle does in the next couple of weeks. But those 2 teams have been proven that they're quarterbacks and they just consistently win the division. Like those are the 2 teams that win the division since Kyle's been in the division beside the 1 year. So I just don't think you can't. No.
How many 3-team trade? Like this offseason has been nothing but 3-team trade proposals.
I saw there hasn't been a 3-team trade since like the first year Doug Peterson showed up in Philly and they like traded Jordan Matthews to the Bills, to Sammy Watkins went to the Rams. It was like that was 5 years ago, and then they're just very, very rare, right? They're definitely much more prevalent or they used to be in the NBA. I think in football it gets very, very complicated. I wouldn't look to be a 3-team trade team, really.
Especially if you're the odd one out in the Deshaun Watson deal, right?
Yeah.
So I'm with you though. They would lose on trading day, but even when you remove that element, trading 12 for Kirk Cousins, just that by itself is what that trade would be before you even get into the fact that you facilitated Deshaun Watson, and that's too rich. Especially when we feel like you're in striking distance of getting your own young quarterback with a higher ceiling than Kirk. Because we all have an opinion on Kirk. I do think he'd make the Niners better, but is it better enough that you win the Super Bowl because he's your quarterback? I don't think so.
No. I think he's slightly better than Jimmy, and a big part of that is you can just count on him. Like he's an accountable player.
At Jimmy's best, but Jimmy's best is so rarely seen that I would give Kirk more than slightly better than Jimmy at this point. I'd give him
that's fair,
just plain better.
If Jimmy's if Jimmy right now 1 to 10, if Deshaun would be like an 8.5, 9, Mahomes a 10, Brady's a 10, right? Rodgers a 10. I'd say Jimmy, when you factor in the injuries, is probably closer to like a 4 than he is a 7.
Mm-hmm.
And Cousins, say what you want, and I think he gets unfairly, is probably like a solid 6.5, 7. That if your team's good around him, like you can be a second, third round playoff team, right? You can compete.
Yeah, but if you're yes.
But the Niners aren't going to be as good with
if
Kirk Cousins in 2021 as they were in 2019 with Jimmy around him.
Yeah, if your team's really good around Jimmy and he's healthy, you can kind of compete for that same thing. So you're going to give up the 12th pick for that?
No, can't do it.
By the way, in the Texans-Niners trade, the 7th person I was missing was Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's the 7th. So it's Warner, McGlinchey, Garoppolo, 2 1s, a 2 and a 3. And
that's straight up for Deshaun.
Straight up for Deshaun. And, that was Peter's other idea. And as we've talked about, if you're going to get a great player, it has to hurt. It has to hurt. And Fred Warner and 2 1s would hurt. You don't get to then throw McGlinchey in. Right.
Well, the 12th, because this is the way I'd be looking at it. The 12th, if we're good and the picks in the 20s, are worth multiple picks in the 20s. Because right now with the Niners trade pick 12 for pick 26 and 28.
No.
They would not. So this is where draft picks, when they're realized, like 2022 draft pick, I don't know what it is. Like when the Texans traded for Laramie Tunsil, in no world did they view their pick was going to be pick 3, right? Because if it was, they would not have included that second one, right? If they're like, hey, listen, we're going to suck. We'll give you our second because it's really high. We're not giving you the 3rd overall pick. Because a 3rd overall pick is worth 3 picks in the 20s, right? Or whatever. You'd have to do the math, but it's worth a shitload. The 12th pick is worth multiple late ones, right? So you start doing the math, you go, I can't give you Fred Warner, who is worth at minimum a 1st-round pick. And we've already talked about, well, if Jalen Ramsey, if Jamal Adams, let's say Jalen Ramsey's better than Fred Warner, Jamal Adams is not better than Fred Warner.
Fred Warner, I think, would get you. I think he might get you 2 1s. He'd definitely get you a 1 and a high 2. But if you told me right now the Niners traded Fred Warner for a 1 and a 2, we'd go like, wait, what?
That's what they like, why are you doing this? Like, how are you going to replace him?
Yeah, even if you told me they had to trade, like, all right, they got to trade him, whatever. They can't afford him. What are they going to get for him? And then it was a 1 and a 2. I mean,
well, I just think the rate now is determined. An all-pro young player in his prime who's not signed, Jalen Ramsey, Jamal Adams, 2 1s and a 2. That is the going rate.
And he's closer to Jalen Ramsey at his position than Jamal Adams, and Jamal Adams is really good.
Fuck yeah. So it's like, that's the going rate. So right away you go, I'm giving you 2 1s and a 2 in this player. I'm giving you pick 12, and I'm giving you another one. I think we're jumping the shark here. That's too much. McGlinchey, you can just have at it.
It doesn't fit the it has to hurt, though, category, right?
Well, no, but I'm just not. This is where the Deshaun Watson trade gets very, very complicated. I can't give you 2 1s and a 2, which is Fred Warner. Pick 12, which is worth multiple 1s in the 20s. Like, we're just starting to talk.
Next year's 1.
This is not adding up.
Yeah. So 2 1s and Fred Warner wouldn't get it done, right? From the Texan side of it, because by what we're saying, that's 4 1s. Fred Warner and 2 1s.
Yeah.
Right. But the Texans wouldn't say yes to that, would they?
Well, then we don't have a deal.
Well, yeah, exactly. So Fred Warner means more to you than he does to them in this situation, because what they're trading is Deshaun Watson.
Well, because Fred Warner on the Houston Texans doesn't make that much sense, right? When you look at all those guys that were traded, Khalil Mack to the Bears, they immediately make the playoffs. Jamal Adams, Seattle, they're good. Jalen Ramsey, the Rams, they're good. Like, teams that are shitty, like the Texans, it makes no sense for them to do a 2 1s and a 2 for an individual non-quarterback player, right?
Who needs a contract extension?
Like, would it make sense for the Panthers right now to give 2 1s and a 2 for Fred Warner? He'd immediately be their best player, him and McCaffrey, but it doesn't make any sense. They don't have a quarterback.
Well, yeah, I don't think it makes sense for them, but I also think they might do something that doesn't make sense for them and just get the great player. Kuechly just retired. They think. Well, I agree,
but I'm just saying, like, typically, if I said Fred Warner was traded, where would he go? You'd be like, I bet I could see like the Packers, the Steelers, a team that's like thinks they're boom, right? The Dolphins, a team that just thinks they're a player away.
Yeah.
The bad teams don't. Yeah, the Rams. They
the
don't
Niners
trade.
wouldn't do that, but that's the kind
And
of thing the
the
Rams
Rams
would
don't
be
have a pick till 2037. I just think
I don't have that
this
draft
is
on this draft.
This is where the Deshaun Watson trade gets very, very complicated. In fairness, and I say this about the rumors about the Panthers going after Deshaun and Christian McCaffrey, I would say the same thing about Fred Warner. The moment you traded me there, my first comment would be, I will never play it down for these guys. Not one fucking down. I don't give a shit. I will not play it down. And I do feel they have that. Sometimes you get it in like the NBA, the worst team. You're like throwing me in. This guy's like, I am not playing here. You've seen it before in baseball before, where it's like, I'm just not going to play here. And I do think the Texans, like, if McCaffrey or a Warner, a guy of that caliber gets thrown in, I think it would get ugly fast. And I think they would draw a line in the sand and get it out there before the trade could be
consummated.
Yeah, I was going to say commiserated. Is it consummated? Comes to fruition. I could you, if you were Fred Warner or Christian McCaffrey and you're like, hey, they're about to pull the trigger and you're a part of this, I'd immediately call my agent and be like, we got to get out some animosity, craziness right now. I'll do a Twitter video for you.
To me, the agent has to do that, right? Because part of what is driving Deshaun out of Houston is Deshaun specifically, his lack of respect for the organization. It's him. Yeah. Deshaun. Christian McCaffrey and Fred Warner have no knowledge of Nick Caserio or the.
But they do know they're going to a really shitty team.
Yeah, there's no question. I'm just saying to me that's where the agent has to interject.
Yeah.
What's his name?
You have to do it immediately.
The guy running the Texans.
Easterby,
the back of my mind, Jack Easterby.
Yeah,
the stand-up comedian. So, yeah, but I'm with you. I would do the same thing. Now, the other part,
this is where I think it gets complicated, back to this trade with throwing in a player or two, because you're going to have to throw in probably a prominent young star. And is it fair to say that guy's agent and the player, whoever facilitates the message getting out, would get ugly fast? Like, why would they want their player to go there right now?
This is why, to me, if it really comes to pass that the Texans are going to have to trade him, Miami is just so far ahead of everybody else. Unborn draft picks can't resist trades.
And Tua has no leg to stand on, to argue. Really.
Tua has no leg. They have to be going like, guys, like, what are we
going
to do?
But I'm saying, if that's a throw-in for a former high pick, he can't say anything.
No, he can't say anything. But also, it's like, it's one thing, the criticism you get for trading Tua so you can draft Zach Wilson is very different than the if you ultimately turn Tua into Deshaun Watson. No one's going to say a word. You turn Tua into another draft pick, people are like, what? Do you have any idea are you sure this guy's better than the last guy?
I agree.
So I just think Miami's at such an advantage here. And we've talked about this. I said it the other day. It seems like when you go, oh, Deshaun's going to get traded. Oh, Carson's going to get traded. Oh, Stafford's going to get traded. It seems like it's like, oh, there's 9 places they could go. And then in the end, there turns out there's like 2, right? Or 1. Miami is at such an advantage here. And Houston's, because it's so much more valuable to Houston, what they would get back, and there's no strings attached to what Miami would send them. There is no Fred Warner going, I don't want to be there. There's no Christian McCaffrey going, I don't want to be there. It's just the easiest, simplest, most obvious trade. To me, if Deshaun gets traded and he gets traded to the Vikings or the Niners or any of these other places, the odds on that are so much longer than Miami. I mean, it's not usually the way these things go, but, again, Goff got traded and that seemed like it was totally out of the blue at the time. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying the path is so much clearer to Miami than it is to any of these other places.
I'm with you there.
Maybe the Jets. Maybe the Jets' path is kind of clear.
I think both those two teams have a curveball that no one else can sniff.
Yeah.